before you came on here, DB and I were having a conversation about the coordinators. And so he asked me to rank with no preparation whatsoever. Asked me to rank.
What?
I,
Like you got tummy like
no, I do it.
inflamed buttocks?
I do it.
Preparation? What do you mean no preparation?
Well, I didn't get to like look up stats or anything like maybe somebody did, but it's okay.
I'm doing it real time. I can go to ncaa.com. Some I knew,
Yeah.
but I mean, I just
And
whatever.
and some you had the advantage of my monologue to go first and look up.
You did go off.
I was trying to help. So he asked me this question. I thought it was a good question. If you had to rank, and that's not to say one is great and the third one is terrible, but just if you had to rank the coordinator's performances so far this season for Nebraska, what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I did this on our message board yesterday, and I was trying to decide how like far out on a limb I was going here. But I had Ekeler 1, which isn't the part that's far out on a limb.
So we all agree on Ekeler. We all three agree.
Yeah, well, it'd be sort of hard not to, and especially coming off the context of the last game in which he's predicting weeks in advance that they're going to block this punt, and then they go block the punt. I mean, but that's not even. Real quickly, where I want to give the flowers to Mike Ekeler and Nebraska's special teams isn't Ja'Cory Barney necessarily, or the block punt, or the fact that they have a long snapper in Kevin Gallick that nobody has to know his name anymore because the snaps are just on the point. What stands out to me, it was driving me up a wall for 2 years under Ed Foley, was how horrible Nebraska was in punt coverage and where their gunners were, and how, it felt like they were just giving up huge amounts of yards in every game, that was just hurting, average starting field position. And you look up, and through 5 games, Nebraska's allowed -1 yards in punt returns.
Yeah.
-1. And then now you go over to the Ja'Cory Barney piece of it, and they have 270 some yards in punt returns. Like the difference that makes is so stark for where Nebraska's offense gets to start on the field, where the defense gets to start. When we talk about, a team can pick up a couple first downs and they're still not even to midfield yet, that matters. Like Archie Wilson is a huge weapon. Nebraska's defense gets to play that way. We talk about complementary football, and you saw that time and time again on Saturday, except the offense wasn't holding up their end of the bargain of it. So it's, what the special teams has done, it's great on every level. Where it really stands out to me is just how he has totally flipped everything with Nebraska's punting. Like it looks so smooth and is such a strong operation.
It's the only time we won't talk about having a 30-yard net and kicking the ball into the wind for once, because they did so many other things well
that it wasn't.
Well, and even, the great thing for Archie Wilson is he had the first real moment of, where things didn't go right for him with that punt that went out of bounds. And you know what happened? He followed it up with a couple great punts right after that. I mean, so I think you couldn't ask for a better start to the year for Nebraska special teams. You really couldn't. So that's why Mike Ekeler's 1. And then 2 for me. And this is where I wasn't sure if I was out on a limb, because I know last week or going into the bye, he should have been fired. He never should have been hired. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's not Tony White.
Wait,
he needs to scrap everything.
I was like, he's agreeing with you.
No, I was wondering where I forgot. I didn't realize who he was talking about at first.
Oh,
and
I knew immediately who he was.
Now, after the Michigan State game, I think we're okay with John Butler again. So I think he's had a pretty fantastic 5-game stretch as well, considering how many new guys are coming onto the field, never really having had the expectation of being starters. Certainly not at the Power 5 level. You start your season against a Cincinnati team that, was just outside of being ranked now. Their passing game has been tremendous in every game that wasn't yours. Nebraska's secondary has locked quarterbacks up, and guys like Aiden Childs and Brendan Sorsby that have played football, in addition to Bryce Underwood, who kind of didn't have to do as much. And, Nebraska got away with a few things there because Michigan had some drops, but that happens in college football. They have done a very nice job. And the important part of this, they're not even scratching the surface for how good they potentially could be when we get to November, when guys like Williams Nwaneri are getting better. And it's not just the young guys. It's not just Nwaneri and Keona Davis and guys like that. Go tell me that Dasan McCullough doesn't look different rushing the quarterback in the Michigan State game than he did against Cincinnati. because the other part of all of this is we always want to focus on, oh, these young guys are going to get better and they're going to have to develop and we're going to know what this team is. But these other guys that have played a bunch of football, they're just going to be the same player we've ever seen before. That's not true of Adesanya McCullough. I mean, he was playing an entirely different position at Oklahoma. He had to learn or, add technique to what he wanted to do to be a pass rusher. He looks better. I mean, Javen Wright looked tremendous on Saturday.
Singleton looked way better than last year.
They all just like, and that's the thing. We're not even halfway into the season. Like, part of the difficult thing with where we are in college football and where we are in just sports discourse is everything needs to look perfect immediately, and nothing in life works that way. Like Nebraska's defense, it didn't matter how many times you guys said it, or we would say it on our podcast, or have it on our message board, or there'd be articles written about it, or Matt Rhule would stand up and say it. Everyone knew coming in that the defense was needing to be a work in progress, that there was going to be some areas that had to get better as the season went along. And here we are, Nebraska's defense coming out of a bye, plays very well, gave up a couple short field touchdowns, couldn't get off the field on fourth down, didn't get help maybe in some regards by a very, what looked like obvious face mask, or at the very least a block in the back on one of those fourth down runs for Aiden Child, but played an overall really good game and played better against the run. But again, we have to be careful when we want to just judge everything after a small sample size. And the same can be true with this. Nebraska has to go and prove it against Maryland, and they're going to have to prove it against Minnesota. They're going to have to prove it against Northwestern. But we should all be feeling better today about what Nebraska's defense can do based on what we saw them doing coming out of the bye. That looked like a significantly improved unit, and I think John Butler deserves a lot of credit for it. So
Jake,
that's why you would do it too.
Why do you think? I apologize. Why do you think we have such a hard time? Why do you think we have a hard time stopping making sweeping referendums versus going week to week with our hot takes? Like, where do you think is it just the natural tendency of what we do in the media and as a fan base? Because what you want your coaching staff to do and the team that you cheer for is to be better every week. Why do you think, if that's the desired outcome, why do you think our responses don't fit that?
I think for a very Nebraska specific viewpoint on it, a lot of it is it's hard to be told to be patient over and over when it's 20 plus years of sort of discombobulated football and compressed now to 10 years of bad football. I think people just
but Coach Rhule can't go back and get 2018.
And I know that, and you know that. That doesn't matter to someone sitting at home who sees Nebraska on 4th and 42.
Okay.
So it's some of it is just this, we want everything to feel good, but we're not willing to go through the bad to get to the good. Like, I think that's the part where I'm having the biggest struggle right now is I see constantly on my message board, I see it on Twitter, I hear it on radio shows, why can't Nebraska have Curt Cignetti? Why can't Nebraska immediately win like Indiana has? What's wrong with Nebraska that they can't do this? And then I go back and I think like, okay, we just went from Scott Frost and the whole thing was, I want a program where I see development. I want a program where I see players are getting better over and over and over. And you go and you hire a coach that's known as a program builder, and you know that it takes some time for programs to be built. And now in the third season, you have people that are upset that they're not as good as Curt Cignetti in Indiana, which to me, I think is just an insane sort of viewpoint on it, because what he's doing at Indiana has nothing to do with what's happening at Nebraska. I think it's hard for people to be patient. I know that's true for me with the teams that I root for in Minnesota and Cleveland. I think we want instant gratification, and sports is not always that. The amount of times where you don't even feel good when your team wins, and we know how hard it is to stack wins anymore, whether it's the NFL, whether it's college football, not necessarily Major League Baseball, because you can have the Dodgers screw around for 162 games and go win a World Series. But other sports, it's just hard. It's hard to be in that mindset, and so I think that's where some of this stems from. But we have to remind ourselves, a lot of these guys, especially on the defensive side of the ball, are just getting their feet wet and being starters. Like the story is not written on what this Nebraska defense is because they gave up 3 bad bust plays to Michigan. The story isn't written on what Dylan Raiola's career is because he had a horrible second quarter against Michigan State. Like, we want so badly to react to everything in a vacuum as if the rest of the season doesn't exist, that, it kind of becomes like crazy. And then certainly sometimes the loudest voice in the room wins. And I'm guilty of this too. I remember what I said after that Cincinnati game and how I thought Cincinnati was going to be this year. You know what? I was dead wrong. Cincinnati looks like they're going to be a good football team. Brendan Sorsby looks like he's a hell of a quarterback. So these things have to live and breathe throughout the rest of the season.
Dave,
but we don't always do that when we're reacting all the time.
I didn't even fawn over Sorsby. I just said the amount of scouts that told me that they were there to see Sorsby. And I had somebody in the stream, and again, it's just one out of however many, but he's like, oh yeah, DB thinks he's Michael Vick. And I'm like, I don't think anything. I'm just telling you.
I can't believe that person thinks that Brendan Sorsby doesn't like dogs.
That guy is like, do you know what I mean though? Like, that's kind of what we're dealing with. Like, is it any coincidence that Childs and Sorsby has played their worst games against Nebraska? Like,
no.
There's something that you can't.
Aiden Childs had never thrown for less than 100 yards in any start in his career, and Nebraska did it to him. Like they deserve credit for that.
I'm like, guys, I don't know what to tell you about needing 310-pound 3 techniques and noses, but I'm just telling you, statistically, Nebraska's trying to play the long game for how college football's built and what their schedule looks like. I'm not telling you that they're going to go out and shut Maryland down. I'm just telling you the plan for what they want, given what this defense is right now working. We'll see what happens at College Park, but that's coaching, right? Nobody fast forwards after you beat Michigan State and say, hey, tell you what, when we go to Minnesota, that's what media and fans do. You don't want your staff operating like that. But yet, if we tell coaches how to coach, we're wrong. But yet coaches can't chastise fans because they pay ticket. They pay money. You know what I mean? It's like it's kind of a one-way street. But I say all that to say, Schaefer, I came away, and I'm super warped, and this is coming from a guy that I looked at KC during the broadcast, and I go, holy smokes, look how quiet it is in this place. What is going on? Like 77 total yards with like 4 minutes to go in the third quarter, right? Do you have a comp, given the expectation levels of this season, what you thought quarterback play? It's not fair to say when was the last time there's another 5-star quarterback that you had good offensive expectations, but where you remembered Nebraska kind of ultimately being left for dead, that had to show some resolve like they did against MSU that doesn't involve a Braxton Miller injury? Is that even if you can't remember, is that is there resolve something that you think is portable?
I think there was multiple times, and you got to go back 13 years, and this isn't the same team. Like this was a team that we thought was going to end up winning the Big Ten, and they famously did not that night in December in 2012. But
I knew, everybody goes to 12.
That's because they had that. You had Bo Pelini kind of famously say Nebraska was going to win out. You had Nebraska
they had to come from behind.
Against Northwestern and Michigan State in those games, and
I'll take it. It's probably the closest.
I think that's the first example I can think of. But you also have to account for, like, Nebraska hasn't had many seasons that are particularly good in the last 10, so I don't know that I want to it reminds me of how they came back against Purdue in 2017 to win that game for Mike Riley to set them up to be 5-5 going into their last. Nobody wants that. So
is the resolve that they're kind of showing, the mental toughness, right? The showing up every week. Is there anything for you that covers this team that says, you know what? I think that's portable.
So here's what I think matters, and we've discussed some of this before, and we didn't like Nebraska at one point in time because they were too undisciplined and too many penalties. You look at their penalty numbers, they're down now. Yeah. We didn't like Nebraska before because of the special teams weren't playing well. So, to me, if you're someone who's not sure that Matt Rhule has accomplished much in his 3 years because he doesn't have that many wins yet, I think that's fine. I would point to you at where there's been improvements and ask you as to if that makes Nebraska a better football team, because they're better in some of these areas where we've been turnover margin. Like
Nebraska's
scream about.
23rd in the country, Schaefer, in penalties per game.
Yeah. And so just stuff that used to just completely
25.
make people go insane, Nebraska has gotten better at. And these are all the things that we talked about, culture and program building and discipline and playing for each other and playing for the name on the front and all of, whatever the phrases we want to use. Like, that's all in there. I think that shows mental resolve. Now we've seen 2 games between Cincinnati and Michigan State, 2 Power 4 teams, 2 teams that I think are bowl teams, 2 teams that have good quarterbacks, 2 teams that have coaches that are above average, or I think they are at least. And Nebraska has shown the fortitude to get punched in the face, to have some struggles, and to go finish the game victorious. These are the things that we ask for them to do. And they are showing it to us now live in color, in person. And yet there is still going to be an element of people, and this is what sports is. Okay, now show me more. Now I want to see the offense look good and the defense look good and the special teams look good all at the same time. And the opponent can't be Akron. And even then, there's still going to be something that happens at a game where you're like, well, I don't know if they can do it against so-and-so. We're always measuring and moving goalposts because that's what this is. That's what the discourse of a team is. And I think that, Nebraska has proven to be better in quite a few areas and are still flawed in some other areas. And that's exactly why I thought this was an 8-4 type of team, and they have a chance to be much better than 8-4 this year if they continue to sort of put this all together. And you only have to win the one game in front of you. Like, they don't have to win their entire season today. And they know that. And that's why I think Nebraska is ultimately going to be successful this season, is they don't have to fight the battles that happened before them. And they don't have to fight the games that are on the road in the future. They just have to show up on the Saturdays, rely on what they've been practicing, rely on their technique, and trust in themselves. And they're going to have the opportunity to win these games. That's what Nebraska football is in 2025. It's not going to be the sexiest team that you've ever seen. There's going to be things that make you unhappy. And yet in the margins, they're doing all the little things that we used to complain about all the time correctly now. And that gives them opportunities to win football games.
Mike Schaefer, Husker247.
Well.
Appreciate the time as always, Schaefer. Good stuff.
Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Go Phillies. See you guys.